Hello and welcome to the Leadership Lab, the podcast where we dissect life science success stories. I'm your host, Maurice, and I'm thrilled to bring you conversations with industry visionaries in the life science space who will discuss their successes, failures, challenges, and also the leaders who inspired them. Welcome to the Leadership Lab podcast. My name is Maurice Thornton, your host, and today I'm joined by Adrian Cuadra. He's the general manager of Switzerland and Austria, aka Alpine, for Alexion Pharmaceuticals here based in Bar.
Correct.
Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting me today.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of get your story out there because I'm really impressed. Like from when we first met till today, I think it's a really cool story, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it. But I'd like to start with like the beginning. Where you're from. I mean, I was kind of mentioning to you that I did some research, and I thought the roots go back to Chile because apparently there's a football player that has the same name as you, and I thought, well, maybe he's Chilean. But I don't know, get into it. Like, where do you come from originally, maybe, I guess?
Sure. No, happy. So I'm originally from Costa Rica.
Okay, you were born there?
I was born in Costa Rica,
okay.
and my parents came to Switzerland together when I was almost 4 years old. Okay. So I grew up in Switzerland, in Bern.
Do you remember Costa Rica?
Of course, yeah.
Really?
I do remember, and we went almost every year there. So with my parents, because all the family stayed there except my parents and my two brothers. Okay. So we kind of went there almost every 2 years, every year with my parents. San Jose, the capital, so not very original. And of course, I mean, when you go there, you kind of eat for 1 week with all the family, and then you start traveling a bit around once you have done with all the family visits.
I was there.
Really?
I saw Pearl Jam in San Jose.
Really?
Yeah, I'd never seen them before. That was my first show. And then I saw them again in Europe. And I have to say, the crowd was way more into it because I'd never been there, I think, in San Jose. So it was super cool. Okay. Super cool atmosphere.
Yeah, that's true that we know how to party in Costa Rica and Latin America overall, I think.
So you came to Bern, so a little bit of a change.
That was a change. That was a big change. I would say more for my parents, honestly. I mean, I know it's about leadership today, but I think, and I'm sure I will mention it later, but that was a big change for them also. Take a lot of leadership to take your kids 10,000 kilometers away, not speaking the language. It was because of the job of my dad, basically. Okay. He got offered a job in he worked for a kind of subsection of the UN that is focused on developing the postal sector globally. So it was kind of basically the post of Costa Rica. And I mean, my dad has been always a smart guy. And basically they offered him the role in Bern. And he took all the family with. And basically, that's how we ended up in Bern in Switzerland. But the story in Bern is funny on my side because, I mean, I don't know if you have ever tried speaking German, but German is not my mother tongue, basically my second mother tongue after Spanish, because I grew up in a small quartier called Wittikofen at that time where... Okay. And my parents, there was a French-speaking school there, as Bern is bilingue.
Like the lycée.
They said, you go to the French-speaking school.
Okay, but it was a public school.
It's public school.
Yeah, but not like the lycée or whatever.
No. It's really so that's how I grew up more in a German-speaking city, but speaking French. So we're a small community of French-speaking guys in Bern.
Well, there's half, no? I mean, I thought Bern is
No, it's more Swiss-German oriented, language-wise. At least the city, it's very German-oriented, the language, yeah.
And a little slower, right?
That's a legend because when I tell two people that I'm from Bern, they don't believe it. I think that's more a myth than anything else.
Okay. So you land here, you're 4 years old, I guess kindergarten, everything. What were you like as a kid?
I was a very active kid. I have two brothers, so we were 3 boys, and we did a lot of sports, a lot of crazy things with my 2 brothers, but I was not only as a kid, I think even as a teenager, I was not the student type at all. I didn't like reading books or stuff like that. I was always outside or doing sports. That has been majority of my childhood, and a lot of friends. That was also a very social guy. Okay.
Were you older, younger, middle?
I was the middle guy.
Yeah.
I was the middle guy.
Terrible.
Yeah, it has positives and negatives.
I suppose. Okay, so school wasn't your thing. But sports? What sports?
Well, I did a lot of sports. So like every kid in Switzerland, I guess we all try football at some point. Mm-hmm. But very quickly I moved to...
There could have been 2 Adrian Cuadras.
Yes. I'm not sure I will have the same talent as the other. Google Adrian Cuadra from Chile. But I did then basketball. That's actually became my sport for from 12 years old to 25. Played in different clubs and kind of third division and stuff like that. So that came kind of serious at some point. Yeah.
Okay. And that was throughout all of high school, everything like that?
Yes. I mean, I always liked sports. Sports has always been my kind of way to manage the energy. I'm a diagnosed hyperactive. So I always had to find ways to kind of use all this energy somewhere, and sports has always been my way. So basketball kind of followed me for the gymnasium, so basically the high school, I think you say in English, and then I stopped when starting university because it became way too much.
Okay. What do you think about, and I mean, I've asked that before, sports and ultimately leadership later on? Is there anything that helped you in your career, like playing sports, that you applied later on?
Yeah, that's a very good one, because I don't know why, but I ended up often being the captain of my teams. So I think you already see a bit of some leadership attitude there. But that helped me a lot. What helped me a lot also is, I mean, you grew up in a group when you do sports like basketball and things like that. So you also learn how to kind of interact with a group, the social norms that you can have in a group. And at the end of the day, also when you're captain in some of the team I was in, I mean, you also have kind of a liaison role between the coach and the team.
Yep.
So that was also interesting in terms of learning. But I would say I didn't think at that time like this will help me somehow in my career, but it definitely did in many ways.
But were there any qualities you think you had that you ended up being the captain? Like, because, you know, it's obviously it's played out like that in life, right? But when they would pick you as captain, did you say, yeah, of course they did? Or was it more like...
Yeah, and that was the challenge for me accepting the podcast today, Maurice, because I don't like talking about, like, I think others should tell positive things about you and not yourself looking at yourself. But no, I think what helped me be a captain was, I mean, I'm a super driven guy. Like, I mean, when you give me a goal, I want to achieve it, and I like to bring people with. And I guess the coaches and the team also respected that in both ways, because at the end of the day, you know, the way you select a captain is also through voting from the team and kind of suggestion from the coach. But I knew I had a big voice. And of course, I mean, that's also another character. I mean, I always am talking and always give my opinion on stuff, which actually is something I had to learn to limit a bit when you go to a corporate life, because you can easily also reduce ideas or like not help others give their ideas if you're always giving your opinion. And even more when you start growing in a corporation where you become the boss. I think you always need to learn how to talk last. I think that's always what I'm trying to do. But at that time was the opposite. And I guess that helped me in sports at least. That was, I would say, but I never thought, I mean, honestly, I was into sports. I was not thinking of, hey, I want to be the captain or anything. I just wanted to win.
Well, those are the best captains, right? The guy who doesn't want to be the captain is probably the best one to be the captain.
Maybe.
Okay. You mentioned you went to gymnasium. So, I mean, although you weren't that into school, I mean, you can't be an idiot if you get into gymnasium, right? I mean, like that's so what subjects, what attracted you when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I have to give all the merits to my parents for that one.
Okay.
Because I think one of the challenges in the Swiss system is that you choose very early.
Yeah.
Right?
It's 12, right?
Like it's something like 12 years old, you kind of start choosing where you want to go. I had no idea at that age what I wanted to do, and I even didn't want to study that much because I told you I was not the most studious person. But my parents coming from Costa Rica, in Costa Rica, if you don't do university, you have nothing.
Okay.
So they came with this idea. My kids need to do university. So I was very hardly pushed by my dad, I remember, because being also this lazy student I didn't want to do the gymnasium or the high school in German, because I would have to go into German. So I went to Biel.
Okay.
So basically, I ended up waking up at 5:15 every day.
Because that's easier,
train,
you know?
Of course. It was easier than learning German through the way, or learning better German, because I do speak Swiss German as I learned it in the street or doing through sports or with friends or whatever. But I never studied in German, let's say, fully. But coming back to your question, big merit to my parents and basically to my dad, who I remember actually. I had contracts with my dad where, you know, let's look month by month, you know, just remaining days to finish gymnasium and stuff like that. So really, really pushed by But my dad on that one, so all the
I
merit
had
goes to him.
contracts with my dad as well.
You see?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not a Costa Rican thing.
No, he made me, I wanted something and he would say, okay, I'll make a deal with you. I can pay for half of that, but you have to come up with this much and then we'll
Exactly.
make a deal. And we both sign it. And, it was, okay.
But it was more of psychological support, I think, in kind of, saying 3 years is nothing. Basically, he was telling me, and it kind of, very, very smart leadership of my dad on that one.
And what about your mother? Did she also work, or she was just
So my mom actually, no, she didn't work when we were kids.
Yeah. Well, 3 boys.
When you're
running
out here,
around.
3 boys, you don't have the language. She didn't speak German or French at that time.
Yeah.
So you come, I can tell you it's a different meteo winter. It's
God,
from Costa Rica. And we arrived in December. So a big shock for my mom and my dad too. But no, my mom basically dedicated her, let's say, until I think I was maybe 16, 18, she didn't work. I kind of partially worked. I mean, my mom is a super professional too, and she kind of decided to commit her time to us. But then she always did a bit of half-time jobs here and there because she also needed, I guess, that's all we did this
didn't want to hang out
something
with
else
3
than just
boys
being
all the
with
time?
3 crazy boys at home. So yeah.
Okay. And your brothers are still here?
So my younger brother, yes, he's a teacher. He's a teacher. He's married. He has 1 kid, and he's he kind of followed his way. And my older brother is actually in UK, in Cambridge. He does research. So he works in the academia of Cambridge side, doing R&D also in the kind of pharma world. So he's the one playing with the mouses and all these things.
Ah, yeah. I used to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Rats and mice.
Yes, exactly.
Not for me.
Yeah.
No.
Not for me either.
All right. So gymnasium. Ultimately, you go to study.
Yep.
Okay. So what did you study and where?
I studied University Fribourg, business management.
All
And
right.
that was also kind of, I guess we'll come to that later, but I really never, until I ended up in pharma, it was not like I want to go to pharma. What I knew I wanted to do something that has a meaning, that is rewarding, and that is helping somehow people, right? And I ended up in pharma a bit by chance. That's not maybe what we should tell, but that's the reality. I never had a goal to go to pharma, but I studied business management exactly into that sense. That left me the doors open into, it's a generalistic at the end of the day studied, except in the master degree, I kind of specialized in marketing and HR. Which are 2 total different ways, but you could select modules for my master degree, and this is what I picked, basically marketing and HR at the time.
Okay, so what do you think? You yourself said, I'm a very driven guy. And there's lots of people out there that say that they're very driven, but driven towards nothing in particular at that time. That's basically what you just said, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you kind of reconcile those 2 things? It's like you just come in, whatever, I'll figure it out later. I'll just go study this thing and I'll figure it out later. There was never a plan.
What I knew is that I always felt that we owed, my parents didn't do all of that. Like all they went through coming from Costa Rica, setting him in a beautiful country like Switzerland, and for us to not use the opportunity. So I felt, and of course, when I was telling you I had no plan was, of course, when I was young. Of course, when you started university, then I met my girlfriend at that time, who is my wife. And I think when you're that age, I think women also helped us be a bit more mature and kind of go through the right direction. I'm talking when we were that age. So then I started enjoying. I'm always driven by what I like. And when I see a purpose of things, and that was maybe my challenge when I was younger in school. It was too generic, and and you kind of learn, but you're not. I didn't have the follow. I was contributing. I didn't have the feeling I was contributing. Okay. So that was my challenge there. But in university, very quickly, I loved business. I very early started enjoying also business management, marketing strategies, and commercialization, and all these things were. So actually, my master degree was kind of easy for me to finish in terms of the commitment I had for it. But then I never finished it saying I want to go to pharma or something like that. Okay. I finished it actually, and that's why I did HR and marketing, because I wasn't sure at that time where I wanted to go. Okay. And then basically I started applying for both. So I had some interviews in marketing, some interviews in HR. But while finishing my master degree, I also worked in the university department it's it was called Service du Personnel, kind of the HR department of the university.
Okay, so like as a student job.
Like at a student job, 30% aside of the master degree. And then basically I that's kind of my entry door to HR, where I then applied into Ferring Pharmaceuticals, and I got a first internship job there.
Okay, so finished the degree. Where is Ferring exactly?
In Saint-Pré, Lausanne.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Lausanne, Vaud, actually, Saint-Pré, yeah.
Okay. So you were kind of just, okay, here we go. Let's try. No plan. It was like, okay, I landed in HR.
I always, and I've always chosen my, and I will go through later, I guess, my career or my steps driven by two things: what I can contribute and what I can learn from, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, I think in HR, I really liked the strategic part of HR, recruiting people, kind of filling a competency need you have in an organization, looking at these things. So that's where I wanted to go, was more not HR purely generalist, but more recruitment. That's what attracted me since the beginning. And basically there I started in Ferring, but it was not like a specific plan of I want to become an HR professional. But what was sure, very early, my ambitious side always came, right? So I kind of did the first job. When I had the feeling I saw everything I wanted already, the next step and things like that. So the driven side was, again, there.
Okay. Ferring is a Danish company?
It's a Danish privately owned company.
And quite conservative, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
I was there almost 10 years ago, so I cannot judge how it is today. But yes, it's definitely different from where I am today in Alexion or AstraZeneca, right? It's a private-owned company, so you also feel it's a bit of a different culture when you're in such companies. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it's different. At least at that time, right? It was quite different.
No, I know having been there and having worked with some of the Scandinavian companies, I find obviously there is a little bit more of a conservative approach as opposed to East Coast, West Coast biotech from the US, quite different. Like I remember going for meetings where once I showed up without a tie at Novo Nordisk, and the receptionist is like, "You don't have a tie on."
Oh, wow.
Like, and she's like, "Oh, but your meeting's tomorrow." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So she'll come back tomorrow with a tie. And I was shocked that you have to wear a tie, because I'd come out of Amgen where it was it was like, if you wore a tie, they thought you were a consultant.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
but being fair, I was there 1 year, temporary, my first job in the industry.
Was it an internship?
It was an internship, but that, I guess, as it happened many times in my life, in my career, people saw potential in me and gave me much more that you would give to an intern. So after 6 months, I was leading recruitment for internships and kind of also taking over some of the generalist job because there had some resourcing challenges. So I took the best of my internship. I remember also, I think one of the big projects I had the chance to co-lead already as an intern was like kind of the implementation of the HR system for the entire headquarter. So it was super interesting. Interesting.
I want to stick on that point a minute. You said people saw something in you that made them want to give you more stuff to do. What is that?
That's honestly a question I cannot answer still today. I think what people see is, which I think is natural, and I thought when I started my career, everybody had that, is like this 100% commitment to what you do and this willingness to kind of go the extra mile. I have to say, I also very quickly understand things and kind of connect the dots, and I'm able to propose quite quickly, seeing the perspective of things. That I would say when people ask me, what is your superpower, right? Kind of when you're a leader, I think I'm very good at kind of connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture and kind of making my own judgment on it and proposing a solution for it. But I have to say, I don't know. I think we would need to ask the people who gave me the different chances I got in my career and what they saw in me. Maybe it's a good question.
Well, counter to that, you said what you're good at. What are you bad at?
Oof, many things. I'm very bad at shutting up. I talk a lot. I love to talk. I love to share my opinion. And as I told you, at the beginning, that's something I really had to train. Kind of not give my opinion first, this is something, I guess, part of my personality, but that, now it's kind of under control, I would say. I'm bad at getting bored. I always need to be doing things, which is honestly, when you lead a team, is also sometimes a bit challenging for them because I'm always looking for ways of what can we do better. Oh, guys, this is an opportunity we haven't tapped. How can we look at it? So that's the feedback I get. Sometimes, Adrian, come on, hold the horses, slow down. From my team and from above. So sometimes. And and there are many things I'm bad at. I mean...
well, we don't want to go into too many. I mean, it's okay. All right, so Fairing, a year, you're leading internship recruitment, but it's just a 1-year fixed contract?
Yeah.
Or what's the story?
Yeah, so it's a 1-year fixed contract.
And nothing there for you? Or?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
There was something for me. But it was, and already at that time, going back to the culture of the company, I always had, I didn't have a plan, but I always wanted to go into multinational environment, super, global, and kind of where you get exposed to different markets, different countries, different things. And it's true that maybe because, of course, of my role and internship, I didn't have that feeling in Fairing.
Okay.
So I started kind of looking in parallel through the end of my contract, and basically I had an offer from Fairing to stay in kind of a different
what was
job.
That going to be?
It was, and that was also it was kind of coordination role into HR department, reporting to the head of HR, and then on the other side I had basically Alexion who gave me the chance and offered me basically a talent acquisition coordinator job. Basically started on coordinating interviews and doing some recruitment at the same time, and they were setting up the Zurich office at that time. So they just had moved from Lausanne to Zurich. So it was kind of this, it was not a startup, but kind of the startup feeling. So I really liked that. I really connected with the people I interviewed with too. And being fair also, because I think this is about leadership. One thing that made me take that decision is that when I got the offer on the other side, basically they invite me, the head of the person that was supposed to be my future line manager invites me for lunch. And when I tell her that, look, I think I'm not taking the job, she basically stands up and leaves me there in the middle of the lunch. And you're an intern, you're 1 year in the industry. And that was quite tough. That was,
really?
She kind of didn't really like that I was not going there. And, also I couldn't relate to the type of culture moving forward for my career. So I said, okay, let's try something else. And then I ended up in Alexion.
Yeah, that's, well, for that level of your career, that's kind of a pretty bold statement. Like, see you later.
Yeah.
I've had that happen before, but never with a boss. All right, so Alexion, when was that?
I'm doing 10 years in Alexion next year, so September, so something like that, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think that's probably around the time, I think we met each other shortly after that.
Yeah.
So what was that job?
It was a talent acquisition coordinator job, basically, helping setting up interviews for the TA manager or TA leads who were doing interviews. I also had the chance to get some junior kind of recruitment, also kind of leading my own openings. And it was super exciting because at that time it was, as I told you, they were moving.
Yeah.
So we ended up in a Regus office in the middle of Zurich, where you saw the VPs coming out, and it was we didn't have enough space, so it was really this small.
It's the one on Dreikönigstraße. Is it?
It was.
I remember it.
Close to Stockerstraße, I think it was.
Yeah, I
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. That was the one, and it was really this small kind of setup that I really liked, and this very dynamic environment that really attracted me at that time.
Okay. Was it interesting for you?
Yeah. Super interesting. And I think I got lucky to actually go into that company, Alexion, which I'm in still, because I joined in a moment of growth, of change. And, often people ask me, come on, you're 10 years with Alexion, what made you stay there? And the reality of that is that Alexion went through so many journeys, per se, as a company. I think I had 3 different CEOs, I think I'm at my 8th boss now in 10 years. So you end up actually not needing to change a company because every time is a new setup and every time is a different vision and every time is a different way of doing things. So I really enjoyed it. And Alexion gave me a lot of opportunities per se as a company, because when you're in this growing phase and they're setting up things, that of course gives you, I mean, you're lean on resources, though they need to use every resource they have, and basically they give you more responsibility from the beginning. And I'm sure maybe my career will have been totally different. I wouldn't have a GM job today if I would have started in a big pharma, because we know it. I mean, of course you get much deeper. You go much more specialized, and you need every layer before you're able to go there.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure they would give the chance to an HR guy to move to commercial that early in the career, at least.
Yeah. You said earlier that you're diagnosed hyperactive.
Yes.
What's that exactly? What do you mean?
I mean, since a kid, basically, I've been diagnosed hyperactive. My parents very quickly rejected any medication for it, so I can. But I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a high. There are different spectrums.
No, the reason I ask is because of the change, and like you're thriving in that environment.
Yes.
And I mean, I guess it's because you just need this constant. Okay.
Yes, so, and I told you I'm very bad at getting bored, and I think that comes from that too.
Yeah.
Right. But I used, when people ask me about my hyperactivity, that became for me a strength, because I also think that's what helps me in many things, multitask in many ways, be involved in many things and still enjoy it and not get like overwhelmed by it. Which is sometimes as another side of the coin, right? Too, where you're kind of for others and for yourself. Sometimes you also need, as I told you before, to understand when to hold the horses. But so that's what helped me a lot, and that's why I kind of like that much this kind of environment.
Well, I think that there's probably a lot of people out there who have a similar diagnosis. You know, it's a very, very common thing these days where it's okay. I mean, if we had doctors in Ireland, then they probably would have told me the same thing. What advice?
Didn't have doctors in Ireland.
We did, but we just didn't go to them. You know, like. No offense to Ireland. I'm sorry. No, it just wasn't on the radar. But I was a maniac. So I suppose what advice would you give to people who are kind of entering their career, who maybe have a similar tendency?
It's to follow it, but the challenge now, and I also see it in my role, I mean, I think the younger generations anyway, they want everything already at the same time. So you end up getting in touch with people who are just starting their career, and, they come with the message, I finished my master's degree or my daughter, so I need to be a director. There are different steps you need to. But the people, I mean, who like the change is to just go for it. I never saw this, as I told you, as a weakness.
Yeah.
I think you need to be open to what you want, to look for learning opportunities. I think not having a plan, as I told you, for me was an advantage.
Yeah.
Because I was not fixed on anything. And
I agree.
And I think the young, anyone starting their career should go with that openness. That's my only advice to people, is go open to whatever you want to go. Maybe you have that in mind, but maybe you will end up liking something else. So follow what you like. And I think doing a job that you like, that you get something out of it, will give you much more benefits, because at the end of the day, we spend more time at work than doing fun things, right? So I always say tell to my team, I mean, if you don't enjoy what you do, it will be a challenging journey. So you need also to follow a bit that part. There is no perfect job, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like you will be in the best world job ever, but I mean, you need to like, I would say, a good 80% of it.
Yeah, okay. All right, so going back to, HR guy, junior at Alexion, how does the conversation happen that you end up in, was it marketing? Was it marketing?
Yeah, I started in marketing. So we were laughing before starting recording, but I mean, as I told you, I had like the university experience in HR, the fairing experience in HR, and I started in Alexion, and I had always this internal debate, is it I'm more a commercial guy, I'm more an HR guy, and I very quickly realized, I'm so attracted by the business side, by the products, by what you can do for patients, but all of this part of the business, that basically I started already, it was I think 2 years or a bit more maybe into my TA job in Alexion, kind of exploring, how can I get more insights into the other side? Of course, I had a super manager at the time who supported me through that on the HR side, right? Because depending on who you are with, they will tell you, look, I need you in this job, and that's it, right? You focus on that. And but I had a super manager who supported me on that. And basically, I mean, the things I did is start networking internally, kind of, seeing a bit where are the needs and what do you need? What would you need for me to kind of come and be able to help you. And basically, I started, and then what I did also in parallel, at that time, and it still is. I mean, science is is at the core of everything we do, right? I mean, you need to be good at science. You need to understand the products, the complexity of the products you bring in. So what I started is I started doing some internal trainings on the diseases, the products, in parallel when I had a bit of time. So I kind of started preparing myself into the core of the business and understanding all these parts. And then, and then at some point, I remember we had a football club. Within Alexion.
I heard about that. Yeah,
we had kind of a football team, and the GM of Switzerland and Austria at that time, the GM of Alpine was in that team, and he basically tells me, I know you're interested into moving, and the Nordic GM at that time was looking for some marketing support. So I said, hey, her name was Osa. I said, yes, Osa, would you be open? I mean, for me to apply, it was a temporary role, whatever. And she gave me the chance, and I was actually going to move to Sweden for 6 months for a marketing assignment.
Okay.
And then, as unfortunately happened many times in Alexion, a reorg came at that time, and basically they blocked all the kind of assignments and stuff like that, at least for the traveling and whatever. So I did my assignment of marketing from Zurich and supported the guys. I traveled maybe 2-3 times there, and that's how I started my journey. And very quickly, I realized that's what I want to do. Right, I mean, getting exposed to physicians, to marketing campaigns, to the strategy. You like, how do we bring this product? How do we help most of the patients with it? So all of that really quickly attracted me. Instead of, I was a bit tired also of just doing interviews all day. Right, I mean, you're in it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But basically, I was, you end up from 8 to 6, 7 just doing interviews, right? And I needed again this hyperactivity part. I need diversity. And I didn't, and I'm sure you find a lot of diversity in what you do, but I needed more than that. And basically that's how I started my transition. I finished my Nordic assignment, and the GM, the football team GM guy, basically at that time I had also another assignment. So I continued on that one. And that's how basically it all started.
So I don't know if he was a mentor to you. I don't know, but how important do you think it is to have within, because a lot of people who are going to be listening to this are in large organizations, they're in multinationals, and they don't have that. Do you think it's important?
Yes.
Yeah?
I strongly believe. However, I think, and I have people now, nowadays we're also connected, also reaching out, like people I don't know, like be my mentor,
Yeah.
And I think that's also, I think when you're looking for a mentor, I think you need to have a clear objective. Right, and the GM of that time, his name was Romain. I guess he will not be upset if we name him. But Romain, he was my mentor, and I kind of also went to him for advice, and kind of, hey, what do I need to do? What would you advise? What would make people give me a chance? But I had a clear objective in what I needed support in, right? Because I think that's crucial. But in any step of your career, I still have today mentors in my job, right? As a GM, it's not like you need to have people who you can talk to openly about your challenges and whatever leadership or career moves or whatever that can help you really guide you through the way. Because you need to use the experience you have in an organization that maybe you don't have to also feed you in, right? So that's that's one of the advices I would give to anyone starting their career, but go with a clear objective. What do you want to achieve, and what do you need the mentor to help you with? Because that's also key.
Okay. So you then obviously progressed. There was a short-term assignment. When did you kind of get the first time, like, okay, this guy's good, actually, we need to give him a full-time job, sign him up? How'd that happen?
Yeah, so it was after my second assignment with the GM of Alpine at that time, and he basically opened the marketing role. He needed somebody also with some German, which I had. So basically I applied to the job, and he gave me the chance. And it was like, I don't know if they already thought I was good at it at that time, but at least they saw again that I was super driven. It was we were in a growing phase, multiple product launches. Yeah. So they needed people also who can kind of go left and right. And at that time, basically after I think 6 months or 1 year of assignment, they give me a full-time job, and the talent acquisition basically department also lets me go, right? Which was also one of a nice thing of the manager of that time.
Okay. All right, so it was a marketing role. What were you exactly supposed to achieve?
So marketing role, Switzerland and Austria, as I am leading today. So I think that helped me also get the job I have today, because very early in my career, I kind of worked in those two environments and markets. And basically it was launching products, establishing strategy, but it was very from product management, very kind of creating a campaign or materials to preparing the strategy of a launch with the GM. So, and that's the beauty of these small organizations, which I was saying before. I think in a small organization, yes, you get less, let's say, revenue size, you get less bigger team and smaller teams to handle, etc. But the scope of what you see is huge, right? And I think that's what helped me a lot getting where I am today.
Okay. Did you ever have a bad manager? I mean, I don't want to name any names.
I will not name any.
No.
But of course, I had bad managers or bad. I mean, one of the challenges I had one of the challenges, I don't know if it's a challenge, but one of the things that bad managers help you with is also to understand what you don't want to do with your team.
Yeah.
Right? And yes, I had bad managers. I mean, the thing I really struggled with, it was micromanagement or using your own work like to shine as a manager, and that's things where, of course, I had that. Things that actually motivated me when I did the transition from HR to marketing. A lot of people were skeptical about it, right? I mean, said, don't go there. I mean, come on, you're so good in talent acquisition. I mean, you will fail. And I love prove people wrong, right? So that was actually more. But I heard some, of course, senior leaders kind of, really doubting about it. And but that was more a positive. I mean, my personality makes it take more like, okay, let me prove you that I can do it. Exactly. That's the goal. Exactly.
Okay. I mean, maybe that wasn't the worst time in your career. I'm not sure.
No.
We can get into that later then. But when you have, let's say, people doubting you, or you maybe even doubting yourself a little bit, when everybody else is kind of saying, oh, he can't do it. Are there any tools you have to get past that? Mental gymnastics or physical gymnastics or anything, basketball? I mean,
actually, yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, self-doubt, I mean, it will be lying, telling you'd never doubt yourself. I mean, you can be and I think it's a good thing. If you go there super arrogant, thinking you just know everything, you'd never learn. Because I think what helped me through my career was also collecting, and I was always asking for feedback. What can I improve? What I'm not doing good? What can I change?
Do you do that also up and down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which is surprising for the team sometimes, for the teams below.
Yeah, sure.
Thing when and I see some of them sometimes, tell me, give me feedback, and they're the first time they're like, well, I mean, how am I politically answering here?
Yeah, exactly.
And I say, literally, and this is because I strongly believe that's the way you grow. I mean, first you need to know yourself, and then you need to also get the feedback from others, and then do a nice insight gathering and strategy out of it. But coming back to your question, I mean, what helped me? I mean, sports definitely is something. What also helped me a lot, I mean, and this is something I advise often to people, I mean, and of course, sometimes you cannot make it, but in my career, I don't know if it was luck or not, I always had this one person you can vent with, in the organization.
Okay.
That is your level, or in a different team, that you can just, hey, help me just see your perspective, where you can openly talk. I mean, I'm doubting this, I'm so upset about this comment, or help me. And that sometimes helps you also get another perspective from somebody who is in the organization. Can be your mentor too sometimes, right? But you need somebody, but usually to your mentor, you just don't go and complain or vent, right? So it's kind of, I call this friend in the organization. It's basically somebody you have enough trust to share this kind of stuff. And that helped me a lot. I mean, and I have to say, I mean, my wife has been a lot of this venting person through my career, when sometimes you go, oh my gosh, this is happening, and she kind of gave me another perspective. But I would say, I mean, sport, connecting with others, and kind of having this one friend to have different perspective has been what has helping me through these times.
Yeah, I agree with the sport thing. Sometimes when I get really stuck, don't know what to do, I'm like, okay, you know what, let's just go throw around some weights or have a swim or whatever it might be. It changes my mindset completely. So, I mean, I agree there. I guess work is a little different. I don't really have a peer, so it's kind of a little bit different. But I have a coach. That was actually one of the best things I ever did, was getting a coach. Because, when I have questions, I don't really know where to go. Yeah. And that's really been a huge game changer for me, I find. Like having that mentor person who has been in my position before, and then is able to tell me, oh, well, maybe, or just question me on hey, are you sure that's what you want to do? Exactly. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. Exactly. All right, back to the career.
Mhm.
So you have your first full-time job. Do you have a goal? Like, okay, I want the next job. Is that how you go about it, or is it like,
Ye-
yeah?
I mean, not. I mean, to your point. Then I started having a plan.
Ah, okay,
Right?
all right. So the
I
plan
started. I
emerged.
mean, not a
What
plan.
age were you?
Huh?
What
Sorry.
age were you when you had a plan? Like
20, what was it, 25, 26?
25?
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe.
that's pretty.
No, I mean, no, I mean, what I knew then is first, I mean, my first goal was to learn as much as I could, give back to the company and the team who gave me the chance, but then start progressing. And I mean, I would have never thought at that time that will become a GM. I mean, that for me was like, yeah, maybe in 20, 30 years, right? Like exactly like the GM job, like everyone who is in a local affiliate, that's the dream job. But I mean, I knew very quickly that, I wanted to progress in this branch, right? And then I was also, I mean, I forgot to mention, I mean, before going to this marketing job, I also interviewed for another marketing job in the same I mean, Alexion, of course, internally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
No,
don't
no,
say
no, no, internally.
external
Yeah,
interview.
no. Internal interview, but for another marketing job in another region, and just the conversation with the GM at that time helped me a lot because he gave me a perspective into you need to go to the field, before going to marketing, and this is a
Yeah.
bit the conversation too always. So then I kind of stayed in the job, but I wanted to get much closer to sales, to field job, and that was the beauty of that position that I was with, is that as you had to do everything, you were kind of sales manager, sales rep, marketer at the same time. So I said I wanted to consolidate into that. And I wanted to have kind of my first leadership experience. So I convinced, as the portfolio was growing, the launches were growing. Also, I mean, we had a conversation with the GM, and then we basically had a resource. So I started leading a team with 1 or 2 people at that time. And then this is also how my people leadership story started at the same time, which was not easy because you're learning how to be a good marketeer or a good commercial guy or person. And at the same time, you need to guide the people with you, right?
There's a word you just used, which I want to go back to, was convinced.
Like, you don't do convincing in headcount. It's a lot of convincing internally.
Of course. I mean, look, we do, but I think that most people don't treat their career in that manner.
Okay.
To create the opportunity for themselves, right? It's you see something that's maybe a gap or something the organization is missing today, and you go to somebody senior and say, look, here's where we have an issue. Here's what I think I can do to solve it. Give me a chance. Mm-hmm. But that's what you did, right? I mean, so I think that that's something that I hear from a lot of people is like, oh, well, I want that next promotion, but I don't know. Yeah. And but there's no proactivity in the way that they approach it, depending on the function. I mean, sales guys, commercial guys, they usually don't have a problem with that. And some of the other functions within the industry, maybe sort of scientifically focused, who are just like, if I do a good job, eventually somebody up there will just say, okay, now you have the next job. How important do you think it is to be proactive, and when do you think you draw the line, though? I mean,
yeah, that's a good one. Look, I think being proactive is everything I mean, you need to be proactive. You need, and even more, I see it in my job now. My job is to even see the opportunities or challenges ahead of people. Because you're setting up the vision, you need to kind of help your team seeing ahead. And when you asked me before, I think that's also one of my strengths is my proactivity in kind of things, in everything. I always try to be ahead, right? In timelines, goals, revenues, whatever you want. But I think you need to, and that's why I always tell also to my team or to the people I talk to in organizations, you own your own career. Many people in companies think it's the role of the company to help me grow.
Exactly, yeah.
That's not the case. You own your own career, and you need to create your growing opportunities. You need to show interest. You need to show that you're capable of, and you need to also of course, use that. I mean, going back to your question, I could create that opportunity because there was a need, right? I mean, nobody will give you a team to manage if there is no need within the organization or not enough workload or not enough, So of course, you need to build your case. But I think once you have that, you need to go for it. And in many things, internally or externally, I mean, I've always grew thinking that the worst thing you get is a no. The worst thing you get is a no. And to upon drawing the line, you need to be empathetic enough to read the room.
How many no's?
No, yeah, and you will get no's, and then you come through the window, or maybe it's not the right time, it's not the right proposal. But this goes back to feedback and to asking, right? Okay, what would you need to help me convince you that this is something good for both, right? For the organization, but also for me. And it goes back to owning your development. We all own our development and think this is a key in every career. You need to understand that very early.
Super key. I think that's a really good point. I mean, owning that and realizing that, as you say, it's not the organization's responsibility. It's for you to create it. Okay. So speaking of creating it, so you created it. You were a junior manager, like leading one, two people. Okay. Challenges with leadership right from the get-go.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course.
Any big mistakes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was thinking before coming here, what of the many mistakes you do. The first big mistake, and the one I will really, if I could go back, was trying to be somebody else. When you're that young, I mean, I was young, starting in marketing and already leading people after 1 year or something like that, right? So you want to pretend something, like, I know better, and you're the boss, so you need to know. And that's the biggest mistake I think I did. Like trying to be somebody else, I mean, of course, I understand. I know how to read the room, when you can have fun, when not, etc. But I mean, and this is something at the beginning, I thought I needed to be somebody else. Like there is the Adrian product manager, but there is the Adrian manager. And this is the biggest mistake that I did, I would say. But again, because you want to show, first because you're self-doubting yourself of your capacity. I think going back to self-doubt, I think it's led by that. You don't really know, am I capable of this? This is new. And I mean, you have the image of what your boss is, right? So you try to mirror that, but that was a big mistake. I always say to people, I mean, if you need to be somebody else, then maybe it's not the right role, or it's not the right position to move on. You need to be authentic in your leadership. And I wasn't authentic in my leadership when I started because I was trying to be somebody else. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I did.
Okay. And do you think that means never being wrong, or not being vulnerable, or not asking for feedback, or not being your, funny self?
No, I mean, it's not about me. It's not always about being funny. It was more about exactly what you're saying. You thought that you needed to give all the answers.
Yeah.
You think
instead of saying, I don't know, let's find out together.
And that's actually, and I think also now, 10 years after, I realize, actually, that's when you actually can give the most growing opportunities to your people. When you let them also, or you co-create an answer together, or co-create a solution, or, you just say, look, I don't know, come with proposal, let's discuss them. Yeah. I don't have the answer. And I think it was more into that, like, just trying to be the answer. Because that was my image of what a manager should be at the time, which was totally wrong. And so that's the way I kind of see it.
Okay. So your team of 1-2, how did it progress from there?
Yeah, and then of course, so 1-2, and again, a lot of reorganizations in Alexion. And one thing I'm super grateful is, or lucky about, is I always encounter people into my journey that believed in me and gave me the chance, right? So then that GM leaves at some point. So I was the marketeer. Kind of some organizational changes again in Alexion happen. And then I'm part of a bigger region, which is actually the region I'm still in today, which is, life always goes and back, it cycles. But basically they add the Nordics, they add the Netherlands into this region. And I'm kind of then handling marketing, but for 7 markets instead of only 2. Okay. With a different manager. So of course, and 2 GMs to handle at that time. So it's a bit of also a learning from how to prioritize, how to deal with the needs of not 1 GM, but 2. And so it's also a learning on that sense. And the team grew maybe to 1 to 2, whatever. But I think at some point then I end up leading maybe 3 to 4 marketeers, like for the region. And then again, and I want to name her because she gave me the chance, Bettina, which was the GM of first of Alpine too. It's funny, it ended up being the same countries, but then she kind of took the region, and we kind of, basically I was part of 3 years ago of reorganizing the region and, setting up after the AstraZeneca acquisition. I'm part of the team who is basically thinking, what do we do with these markets? How can we maximize the potential? How can we bring more innovation to these patients in these countries, etc. So we end up investing and building a business case where we invest in creating three GM roles below one Nordic, one Netherlands, and one Switzerland, Austria, one Alpine. And my basically the head of the region at that time, Bettina, gave me the chance. Say, look, I think this job is for you. After being her marketeer for 3-4 years, she says, look, I strongly believe that's your next step, that you can do it. And then, it goes back to, I think I was a bit more, of course, I always had this attitude of I can do it. But then, it was a big step, big step, moving from heading a marketing function to kind of, but of course, as I told you before, I was in roles where because of the size of the business or the size of the team, you're exposed to everything, market access, sales, even if your title was marketing, right? That's the beauty of the small biotechs at the end of the day. So I was kind of touching many things. And then, of course, also at some point, I was also kind of preparing that, I guess she was preparing that move. She also assigned for 1 year, I was kind of heading the Alpine task force, cross-functional leadership, etc. So all started there. And then basically she tells me, look, I mean, this role is for you, right? I mean, I think it's for, I had to go through interviews and there was an internal stuff and convince, of course, the head of the entire region. And but hey, it was a bet they put in me, I would say. And so far, I hope they don't regret it.
Okay, so that's your current role.
That's my current role, 3 years ago. Yeah,
okay.
I started.
And how many people are reporting into you now?
Around cross-functionally and indirectly, around 25 people.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a fairly big jump. And how many years have elapsed since you were the HR coordinator?
10, maybe. 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, as you said before, there's like 10 steps from internship to GM.
Yeah.
And normally you got to go through every single one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, besides the things we've already talked about, the drive, the hyperactivity, never being bored, always looking for the opportunities, anything else you'd think that enabled you to have that journey so quickly?
I think I surrounded myself with the right people in my team. I think what I've seen in my career, without naming anyone, I've seen sometimes people doing hires more into it's a risk. It can be more smarter than me, or this can be, take my job. I did totally the opposite. But it goes back to having the humility to ask feedback and to be open yourself into what you don't know. So I hired people like, okay, she or he brings that I don't have. She or he brings that I don't have. And very openly started building people, and I'm surrounded still today by a super talented team. In Alexion, in my role, where actually, I mean, they're just amazing. And that helped me also, of course, because if again, you go back to this boss who thinks he's the answer to everything, is the worst thing. I strongly believed in multiple accountability, which we all own, the solution. It's not you as GM who own the solution to everything. So, and that was it. But I think that was one of the things I kind of, and I think I'm good at motivating my people, to be honest, and giving purpose.
How do you motivate people?
It's how I motivate people. I don't think
Pizza
I have
party?
a plan for that. No, not at all. That's definitely not. No, look, I think it's all about. First, I strongly believe in management by situation. Right, you need to adapt your management and your style to your style. Sorry, to in the situation you're in as a team, as an organization, what is happening around you, what is happening in the business. You also need to understand what your people are with, right? And that was maybe my main challenge when moving from 4 to 25, right?
Yeah,
because you lose
huge.
some visibility into the one-to-ones, right? It's different handling in a very one-to-one manner a team than giving the vision, the strategy, the direction. And then I basically quickly understood, and that was a challenge for me coming to the GM role, that you don't succeed because you're good. You succeed because you're good through your team. Yeah, they're the ones delivering the job. At the end of the day, you're not the one doing one-to-ones with a physician and convincing him, and of course I do a lot of things still myself because it's a relatively small team, right? I mean, if I compare just the Swiss company of AstraZeneca, I think it's more than 250 people, right? So, I mean, we're relatively small, 25 for 2 countries. But then very quickly I understood that, you need to succeed through others. And that's the main challenge I had from moving from 4 marketing, kind of specialized, into a general, because you're called general manager. You're a generalist. You're not a specialist into one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Really interesting. Did you get any bad advice along the way? It
Yes.
sounds all really good. Like, it sounds like there was always the right person there and the right person there.
No, but I think I believe in God. I think God definitely has something to do in my journey here. And honestly, when you preparing here, say what I will say about the bad and the super bad situations I had to live through. It has been 90% good.
Yeah.
I mean, the bad, of course, bad advices. Yes, I mean, like typically, like to your point, you need to do this before doing that, and follow the typical pharma career. And if you go there, you will never be able to be back. Don't do that because or listening to the it will not work out.
Right.
You got a lot of that. I think we're in an industry where we're super innovative in science, in the ways we bring solutions to patients, in R&D, sometimes in our operating models, in the ways we try things at market level across the industry. Sometimes we're a bit conservative, right? We like to repeat what we did in the past, and that's something I'm allergic to. I mean, my team knows, like, the why we do things and the so what does it bring. When I hear, hey, we did it because we did it last year, I mean, that's something I'm really allergic to. But no, I mean, the bad, yes, of course, bad advices I received. I would say it's more like the just follow what we expect you to follow, or just listening to the it will not work out, because I think that's how you learn. And sometimes you will fail. I think you learn a lot from failures, from mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the most important that I say always to my team is, if we do a mistake, our job is to not repeat it and to take the majority of it, but not trying because we have in this fear of failure is a total mistake. But you need to take smart risk. Don't take me wrong, right? I mean, this is also where you draw the line, as we were saying before, in many of the decisions we take.
Okay. And I mean, Alexion, since I've known it, I mean, we think back to, I don't know, the early 2010s when you had just Soliris blockbuster, $1 million a year drug. I mean, and it was a game changer for patients with PNH. And then you also had some bad times, and then it seems to be again kind of going up. But for you, like, then that's all in the news, right? We all know kind of what happened. But what about yourself? I mean, what was the toughest? I mean, we talked about bad advice and these types of things, but what about like the personal challenge for you in your career? What was the toughest situation you had to deal with that you can talk about?
Yeah. I mean, the toughest, I will link it to people. As you said, when you go through good or bad, when you go through bad, you need to take tough decisions on people.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really tough because you're also letting go people that you're very close to, and you're taking that decision not because they didn't do a bad job, but simply because it's the reality of business, and you need to do some savings, or you need to generate some opportunities, focus on other lines of the business. So that's the tough part, I would say. But I think is the reality of our industry. I think also, I mean, when you look at today, right? I mean, I think we were discussing, you and I, around lunch on that, is that many companies, it's about cycles, right? And if you don't build your pipeline, and maybe you have bad luck around a few pipeline readouts, and then you're in a bad situation. So it's a risky business, and that's where also I tend to say to policymakers or to external people we meet to, I mean, it's a very risky business. It's not easy to bring a product to the market. But the toughest part, the toughest times in my career, I would say, have been the letting people go, and driving also the change to the organization, and but it's part of your job. That's why you're paid too, right? I mean, it's to take this tough decision and lead those, but that doesn't mean it's easy the way you live them, right?
So you talked a little bit about the state of things. What do you think about the state of biotech today? I mean, there's obviously been a bit of a downturn, but some indications might be passing. I mean, any thoughts on that?
No, I think we're in a good,
well, you guys are seemingly pipeline-wise.
No, I mean, I think, you talked about Alexion, AstraZeneca. Of course, I mean, since we got acquired, it's a different setting, right? I mean, you're in a big corporation who has so many. I mean, AstraZeneca has an impressive pipeline across different BUs, right? I mean, oncology, now rare disease, biopharmaceuticals. So you also know it's a different type of situation. Biotech, I think, it's not easy at the moment, more on the operational side, right? On the trends and the way we're operating in, because there is this huge pressure on reducing cost of healthcare, right?
Right.
And when you hear the narrative out there, you have the feeling it's just the pharma industry who is bringing them, right? But when you look at the reality of the industry, I mean, you just take the example of Switzerland. I mean, for the last 10 to 15 years, the cost of the healthcare in pharma in products has been 12% and stable, right? But then there is all this pressure, and how do you continue to bring innovation?
12% of what?
Of the entire health expenses, basically.
Entire health spending, and 12% is on pharmaceuticals.
Okay. But it has been stable for the last 10 years, basically.
Okay.
It has not changed,
Yeah.
right? So by the way, when you hear the narrative out there, that's not what you're saying or what people are hearing, right? So it's easy. It's easy to blame one side or the other. But the point I was going to is that I think we're in a challenging time because we want innovation to continue to come. But at the end of the day, you also need to bring products and investments and maximize on them, right? Because you're bringing, as I was saying before, it's a risky business. So you need also the ones that make it through. Out of the 10,000 maybe molecules you have looked at in R&D, they need to reach the market. And that's not always easy right now. I mean, we need to find the right balance and we need to be part of the solution. But I think it's a challenging time in that sense. I think we're also at risk of seeing Europe or Switzerland, let's say, is falling a bit behind into the innovation that will reach the market if we continue into that direction.
Okay, so I mean, talk about that a little bit as well, because you've got this schizophrenic job because you're heading up Switzerland, which has nothing to do with EMA. I mean, ultimately, yes. I mean, affected by, but not governed by. And then you have Austria, which is part of Europe.
Yes.
What do you think about the differences between the two and the trends there?
Yeah, I mean, it's
and speaking of rare disease, right? I mean, that's what we're going to be speaking of.
I was going to say, I mean, I'm a rare disease guy. Did almost my career in commercial and basically in rare diseases. But if I compare both, I mean, it's two different healthcare systems at the end of the day. I think the main commonality is the language because you speak German. But when you look at the healthcare system, it's totally different. Which makes my job very interesting too, right? And the job of the team, because we're basically operating into different markets and healthcare systems. But basically, I mean, the main difference is when I look at Switzerland and Austria, I mean, when you want to bring innovation in rare diseases, in Austria, you can submit, I mean, you have two different systems. One is for the products that will be administered at hospital, and one is outside.
Yep.
In Switzerland, it's not exactly this way, right? You need to submit a dossier to the BAG and basically move things through. In Austria, I would say at this moment, I mean, you can really, you know where you're going to. There are rules, they have timelines when you want to bring an innovation to the market. In Switzerland, unfortunately, we don't have fixed timelines, right? So you can get negotiations going for years until you really manage to find something, and you rely on individual cases that are, I mean, in Switzerland it's called Article 71. I don't know if you heard about it. So basically, you need to negotiate with each insurance the case of a patient. And that's very unfair because depending, the patient can have the same disease and be insured with one insurance or with another, and the outcome will be different. So
that doesn't seem to be quite right.
So that's also a main challenge. And we see that a lot of rare diseases, right? And Austria is a bit different. We have another level of inequity for rare disease patients, which is you have 9 regions, and each region kind of has its own way of paying it or not. So you maybe have a rare disease and you're in Vienna and you get the drug, while you're in Salzburg and you don't get it. So if you're in the wrong state, sometimes you just don't get the access to funding, which is also quite unfair.
Okay, and are there any organizations that are trying to fix this? I mean, besides pharma or coalitions, or I mean, what?
Of course.
Okay,
of course.
So what are the actions being taken right now to create that equality, right? Because I mean, if I'm with one insurer and I get a certain sickness, and if only I'd been over here, I'd be fine, and now I'm not. That seems fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, and maybe starting with the Swiss, I mean, we just had a rare disease summit organized. I mean, we organized that with Takeda and RDAF, which is the Rare Disease Action Forum. Okay. Where we basically, for Switzerland, the idea of this summit was to bring the stakeholders around the table. And really, how can we improve the care of rare disease patients in Switzerland? So I would say that you cannot find solutions, that I was saying before. We are part of the solution. But this is a multi-stakeholder issue, right? It's not pharma, it's not the BAG, it's not. We all need to see it and find the right solutions. First, I mean, we totally understand the challenges the healthcare system is going through. We're not saying it's wrong, right?
Yeah.
But we need to find a solution for that together and not just block access to innovation. I mean, something that I realized now working in this business for 10 years, rare diseases have no selection. It's not a class thing. It's not, I mean, it can end up in any person, right? It's a genetic disease many times. So we need to find the solution together. So we have many initiatives like that. I mean, this one was a big one, where we brought patient associations, regulators, Swissmedic was there, one representative of the BAG was there. So this is really starting, and I think there are also policy changes ongoing in Switzerland. I mean, I don't know if you have, I mean, I don't know how interested this is for the people listening, but there are, of course,
I think awareness is important, right? I mean, a lot of people who are listening to this will have no idea. I mean, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know, I knew dealing with roles in access in Switzerland that there are issues. But I was not aware in rare disease cases that, because I mean, if it's oncology, like this is everywhere, everybody has it, so you got to deal with it, and every company has to deal with it. But if you end up with a rare disease and I didn't know that. And in Switzerland, you choose your insurance, and then if you have a diagnosis, you can't change.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're basically out of pocket.
Yeah. No, I mean, you don't get the product you want, because let's remember something. I mean,
there are multiple treatments, but the most effective one, that's what I want.
The targeted ones.
I want that.
Then the ones that have been developed for your disease, basically.
Yes.
Which many, I mean, fortunately, I mean, let's remember that. We estimate that today in Switzerland, there are 500,000 people with rare diseases, right? 500,000.
But that's not very rare.
Yeah, but it's basically so many.
Each one, okay.
Each one is so different. And out of these 500,000 people, only 5 to 10% have a targeted therapy. All the rest have no solution, or off-label treatments, or whatever the physician thinks might work, right?
Right.
So that's what I'm going to. Imagine that only if these 5% of therapies don't reach the patients because basically we have access issues, it's a total unacceptable situation.
Okay, so we're speaking about leadership. Who has to lead the change here?
I think we're definitely trying to lead it from an industry side, pushing the dialogue too. We need other parties to also sit at the table. I mean, the beauty of what I saw in this summit is that there is willingness from all parties.
Okay.
There is willingness from all parties to find a solution.
Well, I don't know who would say no.
No, exactly. But and of course, I mean, politics take time, right? Changing
a
policy takes time. I mean, and this is also the beauty of Switzerland. We're in a very federal system where all parties need to agree. But I mean, we also need, I think to your point, people need to be aware of this. And rare disease is always perceived as this small thing because, to your point, there are so many rare diseases. But when you bring them together, it's 500,000 of people in Switzerland. It's not neglectable, right? So you need to think about that. And only few have a really targeted solution. And we have also talked about diagnostic issues and, simple thing.
Yeah.
Genetic testing. Okay. Many insurances will not reimburse it.
Okay.
So you have rare disease patients not being able to kind of process their genetic testing just to find out what they have, right?
What do you think are going to be the biggest innovations in your space in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think what is definitely, and that's a bit the buzzword nowadays, AI, right? But I think when I see already the application of it more in the R&D side, it's impressive, right? How you accelerate the molecule identification, how you use these algorithms or methods to kind of accelerate also the selection of the right products or the right molecules to bring to the next clinical phases. That's really impressive. So that's now in 10 days, in 10 years, I don't know how exactly it will look like, but I am sure we'll continue to see things on that direction. I also think, the personalized medicine, it's something that will also increase. We'll more go to a specific solution for an individual patient.
Yeah.
Right? Like also you have and today is kind of the beginning of it, all these apps that track, and I think we will see more and more of that. So we will also need to change the way our system is built, right? Into being able to target that specific need that this patient has into more a mass kind of way of treating a disease.
Yeah.
Right? Because every patient is different at the end of the day, and everyone needs a different solution. So I would say that's I'm not maybe the best one to talk about these things, but I think this is based on what I'm hearing, listening, and reading is a bit what I think is really at the core of the situation. One thing of the trend, which is not a trend, but definitely something that is I'm very close to, because I strongly believe we should be also part of the solution there, is the sustainability and the global warming. This is also, we're an industry actually that also generates some CO2, right? And I'm super, super proud and happy to be in AstraZeneca for that, because we're really pioneers in that, right? They're really also trying to see how we reduce the carbon emissions, how we bring initiatives into really having this ambitious goal of being part of the solution and not the problem. And I think across industries, this is something that will become more and more present, because this is a problem of today that will be there for a very long time and for the future generations. So I would say that also we'll need to reinvent ourselves as an industry to also see how we limit really the emissions of carbon and kind of, support the environmental changes there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's all of us
Definitely.
in the end.
Definitely.
Okay. We normally get into mentorship minute, but I was wondering if there's anything else you want to add before we do that?
No.
Usually when I'm interviewing, it's a question I always liked. Is there anything I should have asked you and I didn't?
No, maybe one thing I would like to say, for maybe part of the mentorship or not, is that if I stayed in this industry, if I'm still working in this industry, is because of the impact you have. I think no, that's unfair to say. Not in all, in this work, when you work in the pharma industry, I don't know about the other industries, but here I can really start the day and finish the day thinking I had a positive impact of somebody's life, right?
Yeah.
Either through, we were telling before, you positively negotiated with an insurance, or your team did, and somebody's getting a treatment, bringing new innovation and therapies to our market.
I think that's really cool, though, in the rare space, is that, I've worked with quite a few rare companies, and I'm speaking to some VP, and he's like, no, I've got all the patients on speed dial. Like, I've got them all on my phone, and I know each one of them.
Okay.
And because you can, you have to do single case negotiations, and you know exactly the person is that you're actually helping. Whereas, like I said before, some of the bigger drugs, it's like, they will help people, but you don't know who those people are in the end. Yeah. And I think in rare, it's really interesting because you actually know your patient. Sometimes we had an approval with one of our clients one of our clients had an approval, but it's like 50 people worldwide, I think. Mm-hmm. They know every single one.
No, but I think, and of course we don't know. There are data privacy rules, of course there are really anonymization. We don't know everything about. We don't know who they are for sure, but it's true that you at least know a bit the case, right? And you hear the story, or physicians tell you the story of the patient, and that's true. But I would say that even if you're in oncology or in big mass, you still know that you're doing something for the good, right? You can
absolutely,
and that's what I mean. And it's true that rare diseases is specific. Going back to this summit, what inspires me is every time I meet patients, or every time I meet how people can be really putting everything aside as soon as they get a diagnostic to really try to improve something for their kid, for their wife, for their, we had Marianne, who is the mom of a kid who has a rare kidney disease. Basically, she now created a foundation called CompCure, where she's actually have a registry of rare kidney diseases. She came from pharma. She was in the industry too, but then of course her life changed when her daughter almost died out of the disease, and it's a touching story. But this is what inspires me. You have the feeling you're part of the solution of this problem, which is health, which is rare diseases, and which is so unfair and so dramatic, because rare disease is not only the patients who get the diagnosis. You have all the people around, people, moms, dads who need to stop working, who need to put everything aside and basically commit their time to trying to basically find a solution or support the patient, right? So, no, that's what I wanted to say, because I think how to motivate people, I think this is the beauty of our industry, right? You're really bringing therapies, you're bringing solutions to patients, and it's really, that's what keeps me motivated, honestly, and that's what gives me inspiration. Of course, as a GM now, I'm exposed to many things like the summit and meeting more patient associations, and this is really what gives me the energy.
Cool. All right, well then, let's get into it. You got 1 minute. So this is our mentorship minute. This is for any of the people who are kind of earlier in career or unsure about what they should be doing. And look, I think you're an amazing example of, people who are driven and create their own opportunities. And obviously you have big passion for it. But we all get to a point of our career where we're unsure or we have self-doubt. Again, to go back to that, what advice would you give them in 60 seconds or less? It can also be more. It doesn't matter.
I hope I don't need 60. No, and again, I don't want to generalize things. I can just share what I think worked in my experience. I mean, is really be curious and open. As I was saying before, maybe you have a plan in your head, but be curious and open to what the learning opportunity is, to what you can contribute and what this opportunity can contribute to you. Have a mentor. I mean, we discussed it before, or somebody, I mean, we call it mentor or coach, whatever you want, but have somebody you can go to in the organization and ask for advice, but have an objective for that mentorship, right? Have an objective clear. Is it a career advice? Is it specific leadership? Maybe you're new leading a team, whatever. Don't listen to the you cannot do it.
The haters?
No, I don't think it's haters or I don't know, but don't listen to that. Go for it, right? But be humble enough and self-aware enough to know also your own limitations. That doesn't mean you don't need to hear feedback, right? That doesn't mean that the person telling you, look, here you could have done better, here you could do better. Oh no, that's a hater. No. I mean, if I am where I am today, I think it's because I was super open to feedback. Sometimes it's not easy, huh? Sometimes you have this opinion of yourself and wow, okay, yeah, that's a tough one. But I think that's what helps you. So be open to that and be empathetic. I mean, be empathetic to the people you're working. If you start leading a team, as I was saying before, the big mistake I did was not being myself. Be yourself and be an authentic leader and kind of try for the best and own your development. That's my last one. That's the really thing. I mean, you're the owner of your own development and your career.
That's
so
super key.
That's, I would say, the few words I would say on that part.
Amazing, Adrian. Thank you so much for coming today. I learned a lot. I hope everybody out there did too. And everybody should check out the Rare Disease Action Forum and, speak up, I suppose, to try and help out those people that need that help. So thanks again. It was great.
Thanks to you and enjoyed it a lot. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Leadership Lab, where we dissect life science success stories. If you enjoyed that, please check us out and follow on Spotify under Leadership Lab. If you don't want to miss any episodes, be sure to follow Headcount on LinkedIn or subscribe to the Headcount YouTube channel. And as always, we thank Headcount for making this possible. If you don't want to miss out on any of the latest job opportunities in the life sciences industry, please check out the newest roles at headcount.ch.